Guys, what's up? Welcome to another episode of Jester Radio. I got two ladies that can definitely, put me out of my comfort zone for sure. I still need to come to a class. So welcome Paige, welcome Alicia. I've had Paige on before, so you guys know her. Do you want to, we'll start with you, Paige. A short, obviously the people know you who have watched the episode with you, but maybe like 1 or 2 minute introduction of yourself and then we can move on.
Okay, my name is Paige Cassidy, otherwise known as the Yogi Paige. And I am a movement enthusiast and I just flippin' love doing handstands. My yoga is quite different. I enjoy teaching like power of the mind. Often people ask me what kind of yoga do I teach, and I've been taught Hatha and Vinyasa, and then I did transformational yoga, but I feel like my practice isn't just about yoga, it's power of the mind, and it was obviously just through my own experiences. And one of my favorite things is actually just watching people prove to themselves how strong they actually are. So if anything, I maybe thrive off people suffering a little bit. Yeah.
Your turn.
She does. My name is Alicia. I teach yoga and movement. Also trained for Vinyasa yoga. I did my teacher's training about more than a year ago now. Time flies. And I'd also like to think that I'm more of a mover in general. I don't just practice yoga. I do a lot of different forms of training and different forms of movement. I just like to move well. I think that's pretty much where my focus is, and it doesn't really matter in what art of movement that might be it boxing, be it weight training, be it HIIT training, running. Not a big runner, but I'll get there. Handstands. I just like to move. Obviously, I teach yoga on the daily. That's my core focus, but pretty much movement in general is what I get excited about.
Awesome. And so what was your introduction to training? What got you, did you start off doing yoga, or was there?
No, so I've been around training in general as such for probably call it the last 10 years. I only started training myself, I'd say 5 years ago. So my sister's husband is an MMA fighter. So I've just been around disciplined training, focusing on really one form of training as such. He does MMA, and we were fortunate enough to be exposed to that lifestyle. So I think in some way it imprinted on me and on her, and we took on that dogma of discipline, focus, and really going for what you want. And didn't realize it in the beginning, but 5 years down the line, I was like, I want to do that, and I never want to be weak. And I think in the beginning, when I just started training, I was like, I can't do a push-up. Why am I'm feeling weak, and that I don't like that feeling. And I think I just made a commitment to never feel weak like that again. And so just being around that sport for a really long time, and then finding something that worked for me, which was the yoga practice and the movement, and then seeing that, sure, you can actually really be strong, and you can do this. And whatever you apply yourself to and you apply your mind to, you can do. It takes a little bit of consistency and a little bit of belief, and you can actually make it happen. So, yeah.
So Paige, for you, obviously you've also done a lot of other styles of training, but why does yoga maybe resonate with you more and obviously become your focus?
So I actually started ballet at the age of 2, and I did ballet for 16 years. And I think just the discipline that ballet and yoga have, I think there's a huge connection over there, and that's honestly why I love yoga so much. Is there's a similar discipline that you have to be consistent, you have to be focused. There's these moments where you feel like you can't do a pose, you can't do a move, and then the more and more you practice, just the better and better you become. And I think it was just a transition from the ballet into the yoga.
And I'll open up to both of you. What do you think is different in terms of why is yoga different? Because you see a lot of, let's just take bodybuilding example. Bodybuilders aren't really self-aware as much as people that do yoga. Why do you think that is?
So I think yoga, just from a starting point, the word means union, ultimately. So union of the mind, the body, and the soul. So what we would how I would explain it is when you're on your mat and you're practicing, the quickest way to the present moment is through your breath. So if you just bring focus to your breath, you automatically bring presence forward, which automatically puts you into connection with your body. So now you are aware of how you're moving. You're not just repping, and there's nothing wrong with that. I do that too. But there's something about mindful movement that yoga brings forward. And that's where the connection with breath and movement comes into play, and as such, mind power that Paige focuses on. So really combining the breath with your movement, that becomes your spiritual practice. And it's different for everyone. I genuinely find my meditation in the movement. I meditate, I sit down, and I do find quiet time to go inwards, but everyone's meditation is different, and mine happens in the process of movement. So
she said mind power. Is that more just, pushing your body and, pushing yourself, using your mind and saying, yes, I may be sore, in pain, but I can actually do more?
I think it's such a fine line to talk about, pushing through your body's pain, because I have every leg to stand on. I think when you feel a niggle in your body, and just the personality types that I know myself and Alicia, you need to get to a space, and I've only just got here, where you have an injury or a niggle. You do need to know that mind power, or like pushing yourself, isn't necessarily just a physical thing all the time, because push yourself with an injury, you're going to be hurt for long. 3 years, 4 years with a hip injury. But I think mind power is also just the understanding of your capability. So often people will say things like, oh, I can't do that, whether it's yesterday I had a client who, she's just a very different client, and she's in a very different space. She's not in the fitness industry. She's my accountant, and she's amazing. But she did a push-up on her knees, and I can't tell you, just watching that kind of excitement that you were able to do something when you thought you weren't able to do it. And I think mind power is also understanding when you actually need to stop physically. But quickly, another thing, I often say in my yoga classes, like, my older brother is in the army, and he used to go and do training, and he used to run for 42 hours with, I think, like 30 kilograms on your back. That is not your body anymore, that is your mind. And that's what I constantly related to. So I don't mean just a physical sense of being when you're struggling, but when COVID, a perfect example, when you're feeling almost hopeless, where I think a lot of people have. It's that mind power that you're like, become, you've got this. Yeah.
It's interesting also you say how, it's also when to stop, which it is, because as people that are so into fitness, everyone just wants to keep on going and keep on going and keep on pushing themselves.
Resting is hard.
Yeah.
It's so difficult.
It's really hard.
Like the most difficult time in the week is the rest day. It's actually not, it's the rest period.
Doesn't sound right.
Yeah,
eh?
it doesn't.
Yeah. But I think as a teacher, like, you have to be able to know when to back off yourself, to know when to guide a student to back off. So if you don't know when to back off, you're going to push your students to places that they're not ready for. And also the opposite. So seeing when someone's holding back because there's fear, and this is something I learned in my teacher's training, when you can, as a teacher, observe that you've got space in your body and you've got the ability to do it. You're holding back because there's maybe a little bit of fear and uncertainty today, might not be there tomorrow, but then to guide that person to say, well, you can actually do this, you're just holding back. Or to also know that you're now just pushing yourself to a point where you're actually going to pick up an injury, and then that's not going to be nice. But I think we all have to take on responsibility. And again, something I learned from my teacher, to rather see responsibility as a tool for empowerment than a burden. So when a student walks into your class, it's also their responsibility to say to you, look, I do have a knee injury, or my lower back is injured, or I've had an op here and there. Yes, it's also your responsibility to ask, but each student individually has a responsibility upon themselves to put that forward, to say, look, I am injured, and then you can adjust accordingly. And use that responsibility as a tool of empowerment rather than a burden. And then everybody remains responsible for themselves, and you can't blame anyone at the end of the day. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. You said that, it's also your own responsibility to make sure that you don't, as a teacher, you going into a class, you might be putting them in a space that you don't want to put them in because you've been overtraining.
You would do that
or
to yourself.
overworking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to have that self-understanding that, Alicia, you're pushing yourself to a point where you're actually going to get injured. And if you're doing that to you, you ultimately might do that to your students.
And you've obviously come to a point through experience to see the boundaries.
Look, I think you keep learning, and you'll forever be learning. And that's the beauty of this practice, because it's vast and you'll never stop learning. And me personally, if I get an opportunity, I'll go to Paige's class, because let me tell you something, when I leave, I've either learned a new sequence or something new from her, be it just from a confidence perspective and how she carries the room, or the sequence that she put forward that day. But as a teacher, I genuinely believe that you should never stop learning.
Yeah, no one should think that they know everything.
That now I know everything, I've qualified, and now I'm just going to teach for the rest of my life. Because at some point, there's other people that are continuously educating themselves. And then you might fall behind. And it's hard to keep learning. And my way of learning is by going to classes and attending her classes and other teachers' classes, because I don't particularly have the time to sit and study and this and that and whatever. So I get to learn and have fun at the same time.
Well, practical learning and learning through experience is far better than sitting down and reading. Because, to picture this and that through reading is far different to being put through the test.
To be in the physical doing it is actually where the real growth happens and the real imprint happens. So
then how do you avoid burnout? Obviously let's say you've got 3 or 4 yoga classes to teach in a day. How do you avoid, obviously you know your limits and you learn your limits, but how do you work around that?
Cue Paige.
Go. I haven't learned yet. I'm not going to lie to you. I know the last time that we spoke, I said that I went for the 10 days of silence, and I obviously sent myself there because I was like, if I don't go, I'm not going to stop moving. And physically, because of my hip injury, I will never go and get it operated on. I just need to make it stronger, and I need to be consistent with the rehab of my hip. But I feel that it sounds maybe a little bit airy-fairy, but I feel like my hip's also forcing me to pull back. So if I'm dead honest, I haven't learned, I often have burnouts, if I'm dead honest with you. I have days where I'm like, I'm not okay. So I don't know. I couldn't give advice because I'm still trying to learn this.
Yeah.
And
thank you, Cyril, though, for
taking
maybe
my
weekends away from me.
But it's amazing how our bodies kind of also tell us.
Your body will tell you.
Last week I had an ulcer on the inside of my mouth, and no matter what I did, I couldn't get it away. And I trained last week about 10 times in Monday to Friday. Then Saturday came, I was like, you know what, maybe this is because I'm a bit trained and overtraining, whatever. Let me just rest. Saturday, Sunday, I rest. I slept a bit later, and by Monday, it was completely gone. Yeah.
So it's forced you to take a step back. And I think teaching, as well as trying to keep your own personal practice and your own training up, can be quite hard. And I think for us, keeping our own practice and our own training is also just as important. Yeah. So as much as you teach, you still have to get the energy to do your own training and your own practice and keep your level of knowledge in check. And I often, doesn't matter how tired I am, I'll make time for my own training. Like somewhere in the day, if I've taught 3 classes, 4 classes, or 1, I will find a way to still do my own training. Because as soon as it starts taking away from the way you look after yourself, then your relationship with the teaching, I think, changes as well. And I'm fairly new. I think Paige's got 2 to 3 years on me, if not longer. And that's how I feel. I'm a year in. So,
the space that I'm in, we also love moving, obviously, but my movements are limited because of my hip. So I feel that, if anything, the lesson's guiding me more to, cool, let's meditate. And, my kind of meditation and my take on meditation. So I'm more forced to work out my brain at the moment than my body, which is quite a nice space to be, if I'm honest.
And Paige, we obviously discussed your method of teaching is, more high energy. You can do it motivational. You say it's a little bit of shouting every now and then.
Yes, I feel like I burn calories because of talking so much in my classes.
But I think teaching keeps you going as well. Me personally, I move with you. So I think there's something that happens when you start teaching, like you have to shift the focus from me to we. So in the beginning of your practice, when you're doing your teacher's training and your yoga practice, it's me, 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 me. And when I shifted my focus to my students, there's a time for me, for sure. There always will be. But when you start shifting your focus to we or them, or the private, whoever you're teaching, they can feel that. So, and I read something beautiful the other day, and it really resonated with me, and it's someone I look up to. His name's Dylan, and he's a teacher. And he said that when he started teaching yoga, he was so worried, and I could really relate to that, about his level of knowledge. Like, do I know enough about the philosophy of yoga, the pranayama, like the breath work, the anatomical body, the sequencing? Do I know enough? Do I have enough knowledge? Was the concern the entire time. And then you realize that he had walked into classes where people with very little yoga knowledge gave him more because they genuinely cared and they genuinely showed him compassion than people that had all the knowledge in the world but couldn't give a damn to know what his name was. So that for me resonated on a deep level, because I do often worry about, do I have enough knowledge to do this, you know? And I've realized that if I just genuinely care about my students and I've got compassion for them, that they'll know that and they'll keep coming back. So, yes, that's pretty much...
I think it's also, you know, you two hang out, let's say you two hang out together.
We do.
And you talk about... and so, you know, you would talk about things that should be like, okay, that's common knowledge. Then I'll come and you'll actually realize how little, let's say, an outsider would know, right? So that also comes a time where you need to stop thinking that, well, not stop thinking, but let's say if you're a teacher, you teach school. You understand a subject completely. You start to forget how little everyone else actually knows. So you stop thinking about things that seem simple to you. You stop teaching them that seem simple. Then you realize like how much you can actually teach other people by going back to the basics. Because when you're rubbing shoulders with everyone that's as experienced as you, you stop thinking about, you know, the basic little things that people can actually find value in.
For sure. So not exactly what I was just saying, like to stop doubting your knowledge. Like you've got everything, and I think that goes for everyone. You've got everything you need to do what you need to do. Yeah. Like all you need to do is believe that. And when I started believing that, I definitely gained a little bit more confidence. Obviously, I needed a boost here and there, like a buddy or two to be like, hey, like you got this, you know? But once you do that, you kind of find your voice. And I think it's something I've said to you many times, like, I need to find my voice. I need to find my voice. And that means something different to everyone. But for me, it was to step up in front of 30 people and teach a class. You know, it's quite nervy, I'll be honest.
Especially, so, well, first to ask, so, you know, Paige being high energy, very motivational, how do you teach? Like, is it the same type of method or is it maybe more quiet?
So I think it's grown. I know when I did my exam as such to teach, I'll never forget, I walked up there, dry mouth of notes, okay? Like everything that you've learned, all of a sudden gone. Like, what have I been doing for 6 months, you know? Yeah. And the best advice I was given was take a breath. Like to just, and I think with anything now over time I've learned, to just take a breath for yourself. Like even when I sat down here today, I was just like, I took that advice. I took a deep breath in for myself. Now I'm just talking a lot. And so versus then, just to come back to your question, like my voice was shuddering and I was all over the place and I probably messed up my sequence as well. But now when I step up to teach a class, it's definitely a little bit more confidence because I've developed that self-belief and I've repped it. I've taught classes now. I have taught a group of 35 people and one-on-ones and privates and whatever. So it definitely grows over time. And I think each person finds a teacher that they resonate with. So I will have students that will truly resonate with my way of teaching. I have a sequence that I go through, and maybe I'm not as lively, but I have, music is super important to me and in the class. Versus like Paige, who's got a lot of energy, and she really brings a lot of energy to the room, and it's powerful, But there might be people that doesn't resonate with, and that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
And that's where there's so many teachers, because each individual will find someone that truly resonates with the way they enjoy the practice.
So Paige, being high energy and, having energy for people to draw off, almost to get motivation as well, how do you keep that energy up? Obviously, because there's times where you're having a bad day, you're tired, you have had so much that is external factors that, you kind of just be like, oh, I don't feel like this today. But obviously you've got 35 people that you need to have it for. How do you kind of go through that?
I get asked all the time, how do I have so much energy? And honestly, I don't
say
know.
it fuels you.
Yeah, I've always been this person, like even when I was in primary school, I did debating and I love public speaking. Like I've always been this person. So I also just have this switch in my brain. It's the craziest thing. Like, no matter what, if I'm having a bad day, I still get to go home to my person, and like I can at least let my stuff off on him. I can also, have a good cry or whatever. But when it comes to work, guys, there's a switch in my brain, and that's it. Sorry, emotions must take a back step, just like anyone has to do with work.
With
it's still my work.
It's as much as we're lucky enough to do what we love. Okay, we've created a space where we actually get up in the morning, and I get excited. I have to get up sometimes at 5 o'clock to be at a 6 o'clock client, and I'm like, it's okay. I'm going there to do something that I genuinely love, and I really like the person as well, so it's all good. And by 8 o'clock, I've already done an hour's work, So I think it's still your work. Like when you have got to go to work in the morning, you can't say, sorry, I'm having a bad day.
Flip, I wish. I also have my dad in my head all the time, and I know this sounds awful. But my dad, when I was a young girl, he used to say, there's no pity for the weak. And when you're young, you're like, oh my God, that's awful. Now, the more and more I say it, and it seems so nasty, but okay, cool, you can mope and you can cry about life, because everyone has challenges, so that I think also just humbles people. But okay, then pull yourself off the floor and be like, okay, but there's no pity, crying's not going to get you nowhere. Feeling sorry for yourself is going to get you flipping nowhere. So I just have that in my brain, and there's this switch that I'm just like, and I'm ready, and then I'm like, hey-yo,
let's go,
and I'm alive.
Yeah, it's okay to take a moment, like feel it, like move through it. And then you just got to get on, carry on. And I think that's what life's taught me over the past 10 years. Yeah, things are going to happen. They will every single day.
And I think what also might be good in terms of that is that yes, you're having a bad day. You shut off the negative, you put on positive, and you draw the positive, and then let's say the class is done, you go back to thinking about the negative, and then actually you got a refresh mind, thinking it's actually not that bad. Or
deal with it differently.
Yeah. So obviously we touched on how yoga can be more, definitely people that do yoga are more conscious about their bodies than, let's say, definitely
mindful.
They're more mindful of their bodies than other training. Is that because like during yoga you more concentrate, like let's say you'll be doing a pose, you'll be like, my left leg is more stiff than my right. Whereas in bodybuilding, you're just lifting a weight, you're not consciously thinking about it as much.
Well, yoga brings awareness for it. So if you combine your breath with your movement, even in static postures, there's automatic presence and awareness. And I'm not saying in other sports there isn't. Like you can find flow in any sport or in any movement or form of training that you choose to do. But in yoga, there's this form of here and now. And there's no present, no past. If you're practicing in the present moment, automatically there's awareness. And I think that's why you can find so much space within your body and so much awareness to what's actually going on. And to also give your body the understanding that it needs. You don't have to, the suppleness will come over time and whatnot, but to learn that giving it compassion because the hip is sore today and it's maybe not going to the depth that it used to go to, or whatever that might be, so you're learning not only in movement, but also on an emotional level, on a spiritual level, whatever you want to call it, to have compassion towards your own body, say that it's okay, it's not doing that today, and maybe it will never, and maybe that's something I need to learn. So definitely more awareness in the yoga practice movement than I think other forms of training.
Well, it's also just the more breath work that you have, it does, obviously you're exercising, but it lowers your heart rate. It makes you more aware of your breathing. It makes you more aware of your body. And just thinking about your body, it more takes away the external factors of the world. You know, because you are more present in your body. You're more present in the situation if you're focusing on your breathing, because you're focusing on something that is you. You know, it's different to bodyboarding, where bodyboarding, most people obviously might lift to try to see how strong they are to impress someone else, or you know, where yoga, it's more about the person and the self.
Get to know you.
Yeah.
I think also, you know, in my own practice, like I always start with a meditation, obviously end with meditation, most of them. But I think even just being forced, especially if you struggle with meditation, you are literally being forced to sit down, and closing your eyes means that you have to look inwards, whatever that means to you. And that, obviously people struggle with it, which is so normal. There's nothing wrong with it. But you are literally forced to sit down and be like, okay, everything else must be placed on pause. You can't think about work. You can't think about anything else. And just breathe, man. Just take a moment to be like, whoa, brain, shut up. I'm breathing now. And immediately that connection is like, oh, okay, let me feel my body out. Let me check how my head is, my heart is. So you actually get time where I think when life is so busy, you can preoccupy yourself with everything. And I think the best thing about lockdown was everyone was forced to actually look what's going on inside. And I think that's why people also...
We did some...
Like, what is happening? But you are forced to look
meditations.
at yourself, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
Why not look at yourself?
Yeah. Well, your hip injury,
Hair.
is that something that you had checked out, and that, because you said you don't want to have to go for an operation, rather make it stronger. Is it something that the doctor said you do need an operation for, or?
Oh, it is my A-type personality that I just have no idea when to stop, and everything's a competition for me. It's ridiculous. But I hurt my hip, and I even want to boast a little bit. I did a snatch with 60 kilograms over my head, and I was like, yes, please! And then
Hip
I heard,
out.
yeah, so it's a labrum tear. And I did go to a doctor, and you know what, the experience I had was, we're booking you in a month, you're going for this hip surgery, blah, blah, blah. And I just was like, there's no ways. So I need to be more consistent with my rehab, which I'm not, because it's quite boring. But I'm telling you, I'm going to heal this hip. And I think there's a whole lot more that my hip's trying to teach me. Again, not being airy-fairy, but I really think my hip's also like teaching me that I don't need to be doing the movements with all my classes as much as I want to do it, because often in my classes I do want to show off. I want to show everyone how amazingly high my leg can go. So I think, if anything, my hip's here to teach me a lesson that I'm still trying to figure out. So, yeah, I'm grateful in a weird way.
But is it something that you think, and how will you go about healing it yourself almost, and just strengthening the muscle around it?
So actually, so I've been to so many people about it. It is actually, because of the ballet, you're very quad dominant. And with the CrossFit then, obviously, I have that over flexibility, and then I have crazy power in my legs. So now all I'm teaching is I'm actually trying to so instead of my top glute being active, I'm trying to actually work the whole glute, which is small, simple movements that are so boring, but I have to do it. But what I have been incorporating is my online. Then I'll make all my clients do it as well, so I don't have to do it alone.
Yeah, that's how you're going to do it.
So it is definitely, I definitely
times
feel
a
a
week.
difference. But there's just some moves I can't do, so I'll just listen to my body.
Well, it's interesting how many males, especially, let's say, who squat a lot and do a lot of leg training and get a back injury or hamstring injuries, is because their glutes actually aren't strong enough.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to see how many, and females obviously as well, but it's crazy to see how much, people think, I squat, whatever, but their glutes are still actually not strong. You make them do a hip thrust or something, or like a little bridge or something, and they actually can't do it. And it's interesting to see how, squatting and doing certain gym-based exercises and weight-based exercises don't actually negate you from having a weak muscle.
Yeah.
And that's something also obviously as you discover in yoga. I mean, I did yoga in Cape Town. That's probably the first time I did hot pod yoga, or whatever it's called.
yoga.
Yeah. And I realized that there were so many, and I was stiff afterwards. And I realized how many muscles actually aren't engaged, like by doing chest on a Monday, back on a Tuesday. There's so many muscles within those areas that don't actually get engaged until you actually consciously work them in particular movements.
Well, when you're teaching, I know when I teach, like there's a certain postures that you cue engagement, activate into your core, activate into your glutes, hold, like, because most of the time we just walk around.
Yeah.
Okay. And Paige always says, if you're going to be like this, you're going to feel like this, you know? So,
I feel like a slug.
but in terms of like building strength, activating into certain muscles in postures is where you're going to build that strength. I mean, obviously combining that with the breath, but exactly.
But it's also because you are consciously thinking about that. I mean, everyone that knows different types of training, there's a lot of, a school of thought of, mind to muscle connection in bodybuilding. And obviously that's exactly what you're doing every single yoga session is that mind to muscle connection.
Yes.
So that hot yoga, do you guys do that? Because I know you do like rooftop yoga and stuff, obviously external, but do you do any heated?
So we don't I don't know if you've taught hot room. I don't teach hot room. I haven't taught hot room. I love a hot room. I do, I really do. I love going to hot room classes. But I've never taught a hot room, no. But I do know people really enjoy doing hot room yoga. It's hot up in there, let me tell you. I've taken like friends to hot room yoga, guys, and then it looks like the ceiling burst above them because they're slipping and sliding all over on the mat, and it's amazing to observe. But I think guys do it just to get the sauna vibe on. But I don't know much about the teaching of the hot room. I think it's general styles that get just taught in a
heated room. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I don't know if you guys have ever watched this, where Kevin Hart does a YouTube series where he does certain sports with the other celebrities. Right. And he has done one, and I assume you've heard of it. It's beer yoga.
Lots in the UK, actually.
So where
I've heard of it, but I've never observed it.
Yeah, so what are your thoughts on that? Because obviously you've heard about it, so...
Oh, I mean, Jesse, each to their own. Definitely not something I'm going to be teaching. Yeah, but I mean, if you want to dull a beer whilst you're doing yoga, do your thing.
Yeah. Like, I understand. I think that's the beauty about it that we were saying before coming here. Like, you make it yours.
Yeah, do what you need to do.
Who you are, like, make your yoga, or your movement. And that's why I think we resonate with the word movement more, because you can make it your own. And you can take your training and your basics. And one of my favorite saying is, like, take a page from 100 books and make it your own. It's really okay. And if you do want to drink a beer and do a couple of warrior ones and twos, do your thing.
Like, I understand in terms of it maybe being more difficult because now you're also balancing a beer while you're doing things. But also the negative properties of beer, like the dehydration.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, I don't think they're going to be downing like kegs of beer.
Yeah, well, I know, obviously, maybe just...
I think like 1 pint maybe.
Yeah, if they have like 500 mils for the entire class, and obviously maybe drink the full thing afterwards.
What I would love to do, though, is goat yoga.
That's actually what I was going to bring up next.
I would love to do so. I've done a couple of events with the Pug Rescue Foundation, and then like you lift the pugs up, and if you're not a dog person, just never go because the dogs are wild. But that was just so much fun because it is just more playful than anything. But have you seen like goat yoga? They jump on your back, you do a down dog. I'm like, I'm in. Please get me some goats.
That's actually what, because Kevin Hart did the beer one. Well, I think he did the goat one first.
It would make my heart so happy.
When his baby goats were jumping on his back, and then you kind of have to also stabilize.
Oh, no, I've got to see this.
This is YouTube. It's yoga. I'd love to do that.
Okay.
Well, actually, we're going back to the heated yoga, and obviously it's not as hot as a sauna. It's not as, because the benefits of a sauna. And
okay, where are you going? Because where I'm going, it's hotter than a sauna.
Yeah, it gets hot.
So a sauna usually should be over 70 degrees.
Okay.
Whereas
I think it's 40.
Yeah, so it's about 40 in a heated yoga room. So
and you're sitting still in a sauna.
Yes.
Yeah. But now you're moving for 60 to 90 minutes.
It's hectic.
So
and you're holding postures.
It's probably, obviously it comes from lights. Yeah. So I actually do have some information here that I did get. Well, so basically in terms of the sauna. So the sauna obviously has many amazing benefits, and it improves your heat shock proteins, which heat shock proteins basically naturally, with let's say excluding a sauna, proteins unfold in the body and they destabilize. So heat shock proteins, obviously now through a sauna, will restabilize your proteins and they will re-synthesize them. So that obviously is beneficial in terms of also cell regeneration. So obviously, I believe that obviously a normal sauna is definitely hotter than a hot yoga room. However, you are exercising now. So obviously I think your core temperature will probably be just as hot, if not maybe even hotter in a heated sauna or a heated yoga room. So obviously there's many benefits in terms of that because you're exercising, because you're sweating. I mean, I don't know the exact stat, but I think it's 27% of people that did a sauna 4 to 6 times a week. 27% of those people were less likely to die of a cardiovascular disease. And also, but this obviously is a bit unrealistic for everyone, but people that did a sauna 7 times a week were 58% less chance to get Alzheimer's. So obviously
saunas have amazing
benefits,
sure.
and obviously
and
doing
then
that.
We've got our currently our gyms like Virgin Active, I'm
Closed.
sure aware, no sauna. Can I be honest with you? I've cancelled my contract because of that. I only had my Virgin contract because of being able to access the sauna, maybe do a little run or whatever. I think them closing it, I don't know what the reasons behind it are. Maybe, I don't know.
I think it's just because no one can really wear a mask in a sauna.
Yeah.
For sure,
But
then
at the end of the day,
numbers, 2,
you
3
probably
people,
more
I don't
healthy.
know.
You're more healthy being in a sauna with
For
someone
sure.
else because also the heat of it.
Makes
There's no
no
virus really
sense.
going to be spreading in that kind of environment.
Sweating's also the best way for your skin to detox.
Yeah, to detoxify.
So going to this Bikram or the hot yoga, I'm quite a hot person as it is. Like I hate my hair down because I sweat so much in my head, but love Bikram yoga because of just sweating and like this feeling of sweating toxins out your brain, your body, however you see it. And I think the amazing thing with working in a heated room is, again, tapping into that part of your brain where often people will be like, oh my God, I'm going to die, I'm going to faint and everything. And you're like, okay, whoa, girl, whoa.
Yeah.
So I think that's lovely. But for me, I love all the standing postures. I love moving. The minute I'm on my belly on a hot floor in a heated room, then I feel
There's nothing
awful.
like that feeling.
Yeah, you feel sick almost.
But at the end of in Savasana, there's nothing nice. Like I genuinely, it's my Sunday thing, hey? Yeah. I go to a hot room on a Sunday afternoon, if I can get a spot. Our class, that Savasana for me is amazing in the hot room because it's like a complete surrender. You've almost
Don't
fought
fight
through an hour of holding postures with integrity, staying with your breath.
Dying with the heat.
Dying with the heat, like doing everything to your best ability. Well, that's at least how I do it. And then surrendering in that Shavasana at the end of a hot room class is for me an amazing feeling. And then getting into a cold shower.
Oh yeah, nothing better.
They only offer cold water, which is amazing. So like that hot room, cold shower, good food. Yeah, love it.
A for away.
Well, also obviously the sauna having benefits, but also cold.
Yes.
Oh.
I mean, an ice bath. We all know, well, most people know, after 25, your collagen production stops in your skin, and an ice bath is basically like drinking collagen.
It's the most amazing thing. It's so difficult in your own bath.
It's
You're like,
hard.
but I do cold showers
I don't
every
really
day.
do that. I don't really do
In winter, you do
ice
cold
baths.
showers.
Yeah.
Well, I can't.
But I like ease into it, and then it's also quite a therapeutic thing for me that like every time I wash my hair with the cold water, then it's just this idea of like releasing the day, releasing whatever you need to, let it go into the drain, and then I don't know, my body reacts really well to the cold.
But it's also maybe because you're so good at breath work. Because I mean, the moment anyone gets in something cold,
I mean,
your
I
breath
try.
goes.
No, I mean,
Uncontrolled
I'm not
breathing,
amazing at it, but I step into the bath and I'm like, so I
All
try.
knowledge out the window on the breath.
That or music in an ice bath can at
But
least you can lie there longer.
I can do the ice cold shower directly after a hot room. There's something about that's just incredible. But in terms of, I mean, I watched my sister do an ice bath the other day because her body was just in agony. She did it at home, and like Martin filled up the bath.
Terrible.
And she sent me a picture, and she was lying on the bath like this. And I was like, why are you doing that to yourself? But it genuinely
feel
helps
amazing afterwards.
the recovery process.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I could do it, or I'm in enough pain to do it. But definitely
Just
know
in
that
winter, just go
guys-
find a pool.
I often
in
go
an
to
ice
Rye's
cold
parents'
pool.
house and I'm just like, I'm going to just jump in your pool. And they're like, you're crazy. I'm like, don't worry. It helps me.
Yeah. So now, obviously, with this new lockdown regulations, everything, how do you prefer? Obviously, I mean, depending on how you're feeling on the day, or depends on the client. But do you prefer group work, or do you prefer with individuals? Obviously, it doesn't matter actually. Or how do you guys feel?
I think group work in general is just, it's not happening right now. You know, so you teach your privates, and I mean, I had a Zoom client this morning, and you do what you can. More time for, I think, the rest that we don't take. And then, obviously, your own personal training and practice.
But what do you enjoy more in terms of working with clients? Do you have a
For
preference?
me, I don't teach as many groups as Paige does. So I would say a one-on-one. I did an event not so long ago where I taught a group of 35 ladies, and it was quite, ladies and gents, it was a combination. I felt really empowered afterwards, because beforehand I was so nervous, and just like I said previously, like you kind of like the doubts filter in and whatever, and the confidence that you thought you had is all gone. And then I taught this class, and I think I still said to Paige the next day, Paige, I think I nailed it. I think I did it right, you know. And afterwards, getting the feedback from people like coming up to me saying, "Thank you so much. That was amazing. I really enjoyed it. That was beautiful. Whatever." I was like, "Wow,
I'm good.
you can do this," you know. And I was quite excited to tell you about that afterwards, because I don't teach many groups, and it's a space that I'm moving into. You know, gaining the confidence of teaching bigger and bigger groups, because mine are majority smaller groups and privates. So I think my preference at the moment lies in the private teaching, but obviously I'm super open to teaching bigger and bigger groups, and I think we're doing that with rooftops now. I've joined Paige, we're teaching rooftops in Parkhurst. She's done super well with that, and there's so many regulars, and I'm teaching on a Friday morning there, 9 o'clock.
When Cyril says we can again.
Yeah. So you've obviously done both.
To be honest with you, my response to that would be, they both feed me in such different ways. Like the group classes, my favorite thing about a big group class is watching the people who are a little bit more overweight, not your yoga people, your everyday people. And honestly, watching people conquer crazy things in their head, I literally leave there and I'm like, fuck yes.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And then with my group sessions, my privates, I love my private people so much, and I enjoy it because, as you can hear, Alicia and I love to talk.
We love it.
So we love talking. It's a problem. But with my privates, I also just get a completely different interaction. And again, I'm constantly learning. But with my privates, I'm going to go more into like yoga and life coaching. So yeah, they feed me in very different ways.
How would your approach differ? Let's obviously, you've got a group of 20, or you've got one person one-on-one. How is your approach different? Because is there more of a personal connection with the one person, or is there obviously less interaction other than teaching? Because I mean, you're not going to talk to them and ask them how the day was, or are you? I don't know.
Oh, yeah, Jesse, again, like I say, I love talking. So it obviously changes depending on how the people are feeling. So often I'll stand in front of my class, whether it's my private or my groups, and I'll just check people out, see how they're feeling. And yeah, I don't know, Jesse, I talk from the heart, I speak from the heart, and it's pretty much the same kind of energy. I don't know, I'm like that cheerleader, even with my private clients. I'm like, fuck yes, you're amazing. So I don't know if there's a huge difference, but more just the interaction is obviously different afterwards.
Yeah, before and after. But during it would technically be the same.
I'm your number
almost.
one cheerleader.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think what I experienced in the group setting was that there's not so much room for correcting and guiding. You are dealing with 32 people, you're one person. So you want to guide the postures, cue the breath and the sequence to the best of your ability. But again, then the responsibility sits with the student to listen and fully be there, present. Whereas for me, when I have a private, it's me and that person. And I can truly correct a posture, tell when they're not connected to their breath, know when they're not engaging a certain muscle group, or, doing something wrong, whatever that might be. So there is a different way of approaching a session in terms of group and private. For me, you just can pay more attention when it's 1 to 3 people versus 30. Group setting, it's much more, we all just move together with whatever sequence I'm putting forward. And then obviously if you cue well enough, you can really help those people honor the integrity
Yeah.
of what the posture is, I think, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah. So, and why is it the mindfulness, but why is it usually that yoga and meditation go hand in hand? Obviously not the meditation, because I mean, you see people that are maybe influencers and like yourselves in terms of you yoga instructors and everything. Why is it usually like, let's say you'll see all these people and almost every yoga instructor has some sort of meditation in their life? Is it, why is there always that correlation between the two?
So when I went to India, the yoga that we experience here, and I think, it's these strong, I speak for myself, strong movements, handstands. I know often people, when they look at my social media, they're quite intimidated by it. And I'm like, it's definitely not what I teach in classes.
No.
But when I
Exactly, we
went
need to touch on
to
that.
yoga, when I went to India, the yoga is completely different there. Hey, the majority of your movements will be you sit and you meditate, but then let's say you're doing a lunge position, knee on the floor, simple, hold it for 5 minutes and breathe and talk to all the friends in your head. So I think if you're looking from the history of yoga, what we see on social media is not necessarily what it actually was in the beginning. But also, I mean, do what you need to do, however you want to do your yoga.
It's like kind of getting to know yourself in the process. And I think it's physical movement, asana, then breath work, which prepares the mind for meditation. So that's, the event that we taught, that I taught the other day, that's kind of how we sequenced it. So I taught a class, and then we did breath work, and then a meditation. It kind of all filters together. So the body, and then the breath, and then the mind, and it kind of filters down like that.
So you obviously get a lot of people that maybe see you doing these handstands and seeing you doing those things, and then they kind of question, is it the class for me? Is it going to be too hectic? Or
Yeah, all the time.
so how do you combat that? Because obviously
I send everyone voice notes. Hey yo, no girl, that's not what I teach in class. So, yeah.
So you at least get those people that say like, is it going to be this hectic? You don't just get people that brush it off and be like,
I
nah,
think
not for
often
me.
people are, with my classes, I'm talking more my group classes, are very suited to everyone. So it doesn't matter if you can do yoga, if you're a male, female, dancer, whatever the hell you are. My classes are almost like a ballet sequence that I teach. And I just keep adding on to the movements. And then, I mean, often I'll put Alicia in front and I'm just like, just watch her because she's magnificent. I'm not saying do what Alicia does because she's got her own kind of way of moving. But I often say, like, be inspired by her movement. But if you can't do something, then change it, tweak it a little bit and go at your pace. So in my class, at the end of it, once I've taught the whole sequence, you kind of just move the way that you need to. So yes, there's different levels that you can choose from. But then, let's say Alicia's having a day where she needs to pull back a little bit. You always just have the option to either push if you're in that mind space or pull back if you're in that mind space. So again, it's so relevant to how you're feeling on the day.
I did the rooftop the other day, and like I wasn't 100%, and I think you could pick that up. I was in front, but I wasn't 100% in my full, as I usually would be there. But for the first time, I kind of, well, not the first time, but one of the times, I kind of like saying, it's okay, like just level down today. It's all right. You're having a tough day, like there's a lot going on. You don't have to do a handstand every time you jump back into chaturanga. Okay, so it's all right.
And it's a hard lesson here.
And it is, and that's the beauty of it, because I learned something that day. In that hour, I learned something very valuable about myself.
Go girl.
That I can actually just take a step back. It's not going to run away. And
I'm not going to get weaker.
I'm not going to get weaker. But in terms of, I think, your question, Instagram as such, like the postures that we might post or the handstands or whatever, we enjoy that. We really like that.
So personal to us.
It is. But I've had messages where people are like, can a beginner come to your class? And I'm like, damn straight you can. All beginners only, thank you, But because I just, sometimes it can create a misconception of what you teach versus what you put on there. And it has been something that I've thought on a lot, because there are so many people that want to try, but they're so intimidated by that handstand you put up or by that splits you put up, and that is not what we teach in class.
No.
If you want that, we can teach you that also. But that's not what the class is going to be. The class is general for everyone, and that's why I think a lot of teachers will say it's a level 1 class, a level 2 class, or a level 3 class. We just say it's a movement class, it's a yoga class, come. And whatever you can't do, that is okay. There's also options to level down, and there's options to level up if you really feel like powerful that day. But yes, it is something that I think needs to be clarified, and we need to shed a bit of light on.
Yeah, also, I mean, you know, our social media platforms are a way or a space where we get to express what we love. And I know it can be quite intimidating, but it is a space, a page, whatever you want to call it, that we get to show off a little bit. And, you know, show off's not a bad thing, but why the hell not?
Well,
It
also shows progression, because like you didn't just wake up one day and hop into a handstand. You know, so your handstand journey's been
6 years.
long, you know, and mine's very much in progress. I don't just hop up and now I'm in a handstand. It takes time, and every now and again I take a step back. I'm like, no handstands for a month.
Yeah.
But also people want to be taught by someone who's mastering something.
Absolutely.
If you're constantly posting things that I could be doing,
Yes.
people aren't going to really find motivation, like, I want her to teach me. Because if you're doing the basics only,
It's like a
just to
fat
find-
personal trainer.
yeah, exactly.
It's just to find it's just to find that line between what you put out there and making it clear to your students and your clients that even if you can't do that, that's okay. Come to class. It's a safe space for everyone.
Yeah.
So what would you say for the average person that obviously enjoys yoga, what's the correct frequency? Like how often a week should someone do yoga?
I would say take a Sunday off. No, I'm just joking. Like, you move every day. Don't kill yourself every day, but move your body. Like, movement is medicine.
Yeah.
Okay? And even if you put your mat out and you do a couple of forward folds, a little stretch, like a little stretch is fine. But movement is medicine. And if you do not want to become stagnant, what happens to stagnant water?
Yeah.
You need to keep moving and flowing. And that does not mean doing handstands and splitting and doing all these crazy things. It just means, and if you want to do that, that's cool as well. Just pay attention and take a step back when your body tells you to. But in terms of how often a week, if a private client says to me, how many times a week should I start? I say, listen, let's start with twice a week, maybe once. If you truly enjoy it, cool, we can pick it up. We can do 5-6 times a week. I'm here for you. But in the beginning, if I'm going to teach you once or twice a week, and on the other days, take 15 minutes and move. Like, you actually don't need to pay for that. You've got that already. Put a mat out. You don't even need a mat. Just move. That's my take on it.
I think also there's just this crazy perception on yoga. Often people say, oh, but I'm not flexible, which is completely understandable. It's not the point. But I think in the movement industry and in the fitness industry, and people who aren't the three of us, where it is our passion, our love, our career, people just need to be told 15 minutes a day. You don't have to do more. If that means your legs are straight in front of you and you're going to just do 10 fold-overs, you've done something. Or like moving in your bed, like you can do little twists. Not even, sometimes 15 minutes even scares people. 10 minutes a day of just simple stretches. It doesn't even matter what you do. But I also agree, start with twice a week.
Start with twice a week, and if you want to do a yoga practice, 45-minute practice, hour practice. But I genuinely believe, like yesterday, I didn't get around to training, but I took 10 minutes and I just like stretched in the wall. I put my arm on the wall like this, and I just moved into my body. That in itself, like I said, is medicine. That and getting outside in the sun.
Oh, barefoot.
Like, take your shoes off, put your feet on the grass, and get out there. I think with everything going on, people forget because, like, yes, you may be getting sick, but I'm not saying exert yourself, but just move your body a bit and put 10 minutes on your timer and get in the sun, and you'll already feel better.
Yeah. Well, great, guys. I want to thank you very much for coming on.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Are we going to do a handstand now together?
We're doing handstands.
Yeah, you can.